very experienced VC in Paris. She was working for Sofinnova until 2017, if I'm correct. And she recently started her own fund called Jeito. Jeito. So yeah, we will discuss your career together and also how the Paris ecosystem evolved, and maybe we can have some parallel with Cambridge. So my first question is, you've been transitioning from academia to the venture capital world in 2001. So how was it, this transition? I think it's two very different worlds. And how did you live it?
So hi everyone, and very happy to be there with you tonight. So actually, I started my career as a doctor, physician, specialized in hemato-oncology. So spent actually here in Paris at the AP-HP, the biggest group of hospital in France. Still very good medicine in France. I spent 5 years as equivalent of resident, and mostly in hemato-oncology and practicing with a patient, which is important compared with what we could see in some groups of investors in the US, MD, but they have not touched a patient. And I'm saying that because it's what has driven my whole, life in terms of business life and career. It's all about indeed the patient. So, and I think the hematology actually is the most beautiful and interesting specialty. Indeed, all the big discovery in cancer had come from hematology and leukemia. So spent 5 years there in hospital, and also I've done science because why it's a very, very beautiful specialty because it's very linked to science, particularly in hematology, and done a PhD and a postdoc with INSERM for 4 years, and they're from their publishing, but with in the mindset I was in a way programmed for making a career in a hospital, so medicine, science, and then I was supposed to be back to the hospital, and I got even a position there that was waiting for me, and I was pushing back with more science, and then instead indeed of coming back, I turned bad or good. Finally, I think it's good because I'm happy with this investor world. So why? To answer to your question. So at that time when I've done more science and less medicine and less patient, I not being in contact with a patient, I didn't lose really the desire to continue on that, but I was wondering about what to do more for the patient, and through the science and with a contact with a patient in hospital, I realized hearing and reading about innovation, what could provide innovation to the patient. And at that time, it was 17 or 18 years ago, already 45% of the drugs sold by the big pharma were coming from the small startup, from the biotech. And I was quite intrigued by that. And from that, I met different people, more initially by curiosity. It was not really looking for a job. And I met two people in particular. One was, or is actually an entrepreneur, and then became a venture capitalist actually. He was coming back from the US after a success in biotech, and he's by personal relationship, and he said to me, you should do VC. And I didn't even know what was VC. So I said, okay, why not? He said, I'm not sure he will be happy I repeat that, but anyway, I will repeat it. He said, it's great, you could make big money, you don't work a lot, and for a woman, it's great, you don't work a lot. So, okay, so nevertheless, I don't think he really think that, but just—
You can name him?
No, I won't. You could get then afterwards. But anyway, he was the one who identified a potential in me as a VC, and also he is the one who gave my name, to Sofinnova, who was looking for a medic into the team. The second person was the head of valorization and tech transfer at Institut Pasteur. Indeed, and here it was not by personal relationship, but it was more thinking about, okay, innovation here in Paris, the temple of innovation. I should go to meet Pasteur Institute. And same, at that time it was Christian Policard who said to me, you should do venture capital. So, okay, why twice? So I didn't really not pay attention, but I didn't really go forward understanding more. But at that time, the first one put me in contact with Sofinnova, who was looking for a physician into the team. At the same time, he put me with in contact with another fund, actually, Rothschild, Edrip, now Andera. But it was some times ago. And I decided to join Sofinnova as an analyst.
So you had the choice between the two main VCs of Paris.
Of today, at that time, Andera was not as today. But anyway.
Okay. And how was it to move from academia to this business world? Like, what was the main difference?
Actually, a lot of, I would say, similarities. Obviously, academic is different from private business, but similarities probably because we are in healthcare, and there is so much, stakeholders as a VC that you will see, particularly academic. So I was speaking the same language than the entrepreneur, or at least I was trying. So it was not such a big change. Obviously, it was more about making deals, and actually I discovered that I like very much to make deals. So all this part, and finally, it's not about finance. I've done a short, training at INSEAD, but it was more to get some notion of balance sheet and profit and loss, but finally not super useful in healthcare or at least biotech because they lose money all the time. So that's easy. So the difference. I think actually it was not a big chunk.
That's interesting. Okay, so it's not so different.
Yeah, it's not so. I mean, it's not so different again because I think it's the fact that you are in an ecosystem much larger to finally do more for the patient, obviously to make money for your investors, for yourself, but it's all the same goal in a way.
That's interesting. And so it was in early 2000s.
Sorry to interrupt you, but it was more than the willingness to go back to my ex-colleague of the PhD or in medicine to say, there is more outside, and really related to what you do, to value what you do.
You were able to educate other people in the academia to the investment.
Yeah,
that's good. So in early 2000s, you started this career as VC. How was the biotech ecosystem in Paris? How was it?
So at that time, it was actually I started in 2001, so like 2002, but it was quite indeed not really mature. Even I mean, I would say all this business. I mean, all the professionals were not so professional in the way, and I think it's not only Paris; it's everywhere. The last 10, 15 years, it's you don't, as an investor, even early stage investor, you don't do at all the same kind of deals. And the quality, the quality of the science that you will back, the risk you will take. It's not so much the risk. It's I think the whole quality has really improved. But in terms of the ecosystem, at that time compared with now, is first much more entrepreneurship mindset. Clearly in Paris and in France. Today, compared with before, it's nothing to do with 15 years ago. So more entrepreneurs that are willing to start their company. So that's one. The second thing is the ecosystem in terms of financing. Much more money into the companies. Also, I think much more help with incubators, but as well, we have to mention BPI France because they have been key there with grants and financing, helping to develop in France and Paris.
Oh, okay. So that's, in your opinion, that's how Paris became so dynamic for biotech startup in general. It's like foundings and entrepreneurship spirits together in this mix.
yeah, clearly that's the two, I would say, main things. What is missing still is having and also I would say, sorry, but the funding is also more American and or even UK investors coming to into French companies and Paris based, not only Paris. That was a big change. I remember that we were as Sofinnova, and Sofinnova, big name. We were really fighting to have co-investors in companies, in French companies, and that was a big change I observed. While I started at Sofinnova, it's ringing, without naming, but naming the, Abingworth of in UK or US investors, more and more, Orbimed or NEA or,
Was it because of Sofinnova's reputation or because of really the startups that were present in France?
I think it's a combination. It's a combination, clearly, and again the quality better and better, and I've seen Sofinnova, but like others, even as Sofinnova, backing really the scientists with not even some experiments. I mean, it's not anymore the case. The case today.
Okay. And about Sofinnova, so Sofinnova has been very successful in the last 15 years with biotech. What were the key elements you were looking in a startup? Like, how did you choose your startups?
Okay, it's going to be not super original, but the people. No, clearly a combination between the entrepreneur and finally. It's not only the science and technology, the potential. Potential, could it be more than just one drug? It was mostly investing in biotech, a little bit in medtech as well. So that was two key elements. And also, is it affordable for financing by VC type? In terms of development and capabilities to follow.
So Jonathan said something interesting about Cambridge and the gap between business angels and VC. Do you see exactly the same things in Paris, or is it maybe a bit different?
It's worse, I think. It's worse because we don't have so many business angels. Even there is an association of business angels, and we don't see them so much, which is a pity. I would say also compared again with the US, and I've seen this particularly on a medtech deal where business angel came first, but they were themselves key opinion leaders in, it was in cardiology, key opinion leaders who made a lot of money and put again. So it's why my question earlier to you, John, was it an entrepreneur in healthcare or not? Because I think even it could help, and you are the example, but I think if we could get business angels that are sophisticated enough to, it's not that they are not sophisticated, but let's say specialized in what we do, it is helpful because most of the time, biotech is so much risky.
Yeah.
There are not so many of them that would like, to invest, at least in France. You have now more family offices that are coming, but nevertheless, they are quite scared about this business. Also, the fact that we will raise a lot of the money. So if we could get business angels of the field, let's say, I think it will be great.
And I think we don't have in France this category of super angels which are able to follow up rounds also. Like it's small business angels and this kind of stay at the early stage but cannot follow up. So that's maybe also
why and even we have some, they prefer tech or medtech, but
sure. Not in healthcare.
Not biotech. Biotech for them it's quite difficult. That's one of the big issues.
So we have said Paris is becoming really a dynamic place for startups, but in your opinion, what is lacking? What would you change again?
I think what is really lacking is enriching this ecosystem even more, and particularly by sharing between entrepreneurs and between all the stakeholders. It's what great what you do because it's part of it, and I think it's really missing. And I was trying to find the reason or explain and I think there is something different from the tech, because the tech, they share a lot. They share a lot, and even here in Paris. And I think it's a question of age, actually. It's, the tech is very much about young people. Biotech could be like you, but most, in biotech is not so much young people. It's more women. We'll maybe speak about that.
Yeah, just after.
It's probably, a women business, and tech is more a young generation, I would say.
Okay. So before we speak about women in biotech, I would like to talk about JATO. So it's a mix of a fund and a foundation. So it's a very interesting model. Can you tell us more about the story behind JATO and these two models?
Okay. So JATO is in the process of being built, and but with a lot of behind in terms of thinking and by my experience, actually. So even though Sofinnova, great experience, so grew up into the firm from analyst to partner, then managing partner, and I've been very lucky to do great investments, and helping companies to great to be built all over Europe and a little bit in the US, but mostly in Europe. Nevertheless, even building companies now altogether, they are like 8 billion market cap. Nevertheless, I realized that I didn't get the means of the entrepreneur I was, of the ambition of the entrepreneur I was backing and accompanying. And when I say the means is the financial means, because biotech needs a lot of money, but also there is a certain path without having a model in silo. Instead of having the VCs and then the growth hedge fund, it's really disruptive for the trajectory of the company. And I'm sure it will resonate with entrepreneurs, because it's you have to raise again money. You have anyway, but then you have to adjust yourself, or even more than adjust, even change your plan just to get the money. So it's really complicated, losing value for everyone. So and also the VCs, finally they are there for long, even though they want to be short and push for the exit early on. So, and in biotech it has to take some time. So from that diagnostic, which is the lack of continuity, and also not enough means in terms of capital, but also not enough means in terms of human resources. Indeed, in the investor world, it's very much pure VC, very much individual success model, one partner per deal. So I thought, let's think like a company. Let's think like a company and do like a company. Active collaboratively, serve the entrepreneur with the maximum of competencies inside the fund, and really, again, do in a way like some of you may know some funds in the US in tech, like Andreessen Horowitz or Inside, who understood before biotech that companies and entrepreneur needs a kind of shadow board, but very active. So from that, I built Jeito. So Jeito, there is a fund and indeed a foundation. The fund is so I should say company for my lawyer, because it's not yet in marketing phase. So it's to indeed so invest in mainly in biotech, with this strategy to help to accelerate companies and help them even toward the commercialization. So really build and help the entrepreneur to build the whole potential of the company, and not just one narrow program. So that's about the fund, with a great team that I worked with in the past, and very much multi-talented, from the translational research to the market access. And so the fund is great, we think, because we think we will have more impact anyway on the patient, with our mission, which is to go faster for the patient, further with the entrepreneur, and we think we will give not only financially interesting thing, but also getting more drugs accessible to the patient at the end of the day, instead of selling too early the company, etc. But nevertheless, we wanted to have more impact, and we built also a foundation, and the foundation is to mentor, coach, and finance with a not-profit approach, women in the life science area. So young women in universities to help them to, to push them to be entrepreneur and to help them to find the right business model. And here it's all healthcare. It's not only biotech, it could be e-health. So, so that's about the foundation, with really a relationship finally that people or others had done without even thinking about it, which is finally the not-profit serve the profit that will serve the not-profit. If you think about the example of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation in the 1995 was actually financing this disease. Why? Because thanks to the donation, because the big pharma thought it's not a big opportunity. So rare disease, and they thought it's not a big business. Thanks to the donation, they found the gene, and then they found a drug that was in a company who became finally Vertex, who is a big biotech company, 40 billion market cap, something like that. And in exchange, the foundation got some royalties, and they sold half of the royalties to a royalty fund. And today, this foundation, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, they sit on almost 4 billion. What do they do with that? They reinvest in rare disease, in a hospital, and they do a lot for the not-profit. So it's really to show the the circle, and it's what we will try to do with the fund and the foundation and all the stakeholders with us and the partners.
It's a really nice vision to have a mission for an investor. So it's really nice, and it's a good introduction to the non-profit association you founded called WIRH, Women Innovating Together in Healthcare. You founded it in 2012. Can you tell us what it is and why you founded this?
Yeah. So with indeed, it's even 10 years ago we started, and then they said,
okay,
no, but the association, indeed, legally speaking, is a little bit later. And the idea is it's not ID now. It's a real group of about 500 women, and I know that there are some in the room. And actually, Emmanuel Voisin is part of WIRH. So it's the richness of WIRH. So for women, indeed, innovating together in healthcare is that it is gathering women from all over the world, mainly US, Europe, but not only, Brazil, a little bit China as well, Israel, and so global and international like healthcare is. The second very important thing is that it's these women are across part of the whole ecosystem, so from the science to everything you could think of, even healthcare insurance companies, regulatory, patent, all what we need in an ecosystem. And the third important thing is that these women are what we call generous and accomplished. So accomplished, it means quite experienced, and generous to share between each other. So then you could ask why women. So it's really to be together, to do 1 + 1 = 3, to make healthcare moving forward. Is not to speak about equality or this kind of problem. Is really to be together, to help each other. And why women? Because women are key in our industry since ever. Women are the one taking care of the elderly people in the family, the children. There is a study at from J&J in 2017 showing that 80% of the decision of healthcare in families are taken by women. So it's why. It's to try to make something moving here.
Do you think also diversity, gender diversity is lacking a bit in biotech, or do you have another experience?
So it's less than in tech, again comparing, but yes, it's lacking, and particularly in terms of financing. And it's, and I could say that because I actually on both sides. I'm on the side of investor, but also entrepreneur setting up this Jeito adventure. So it is, and it has been, I think it's, according to Forbes, it's 2% only of the money raised last year was, I don't know how many billions, was raised by women. And it's le nerf de la guerre, as we say in French, the nerve of the war. It's about, ça le fait pas, mais c'est pas grave. It's about money. And, you have men financing other men that will finance other men. And we could see even with Jeito, how many, even we don't have the fund, but we attract much more women leaders and CEOs of startups. And it's not that we want to favor them, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, okay. Yes, so I think that's a very important mission as well. We will take some questions if you have questions, someone. No questions? Okay.
They want to go to drink.
Jonathan. Yeah, it's soon. Drinks are soon.
I suppose it's continue on the theme about the use of AI in healthcare. What have you got companies in that space that are doing that, using AI?
So we have, but it's more as a tool. It's more as a tool to. It's not the basis of their business model, and still. For me, it's a question how to make money in AI, just in AI. You know how to use it, and you describe what you do. It's different. You have clearly an application. So yeah, many things. As I would say, as more as a doctor, I would say I think AI in terms of first application, easy one. It's in all comment l'imagerie, radiology and all of this, of course. And the second one is all the tissue, obviously, because of the eyes. But in terms of pure business, we will finance. It won't be that. It's more as a tool, and we are looking to one particularly with using that for drug development.
Okay. Another question? Yeah, in the back.
Yeah. Do you think the traditional VC model is broken in biotech? I'm just thinking of the example of Syncona and how that is capitalizing on the market in order to raise funds for its investee companies.
So I think this model of Syncona is very interesting to raise more money, and so on that it's interesting. Now the traditional, and I think Syncona is a little bit apart, and they are more and more moving, by the way, to go even beyond just the VC, back to what we want to do. And others had started like what we do in terms of continuity, more money, particularly in the US. So I think yes, it's broken, not yet broken, but this issue of having the lack of continuity, particularly if you want to build big companies. If you want to sell rapidly, okay. But if you want to build company, I don't know, in your story, by the way, the investor, how long they stayed and how it. But in biotech, when you raise a lot of money again and you have to change your trajectory, it is impactful, including when you look at even funds that has the whole chain, so VC, hedge fund, even royalty, debt, they have different teams, actually, different goals. So it's not broken, but it could be optimized. Actually, there is a report from the EIB, so the European Investment Bank, 1 year ago, looking at life science investment financing in Europe. And one of the diagnostic, in addition to not enough money, is the fact that there is this lack of continuity, and there is really an issue to build big, market leaders.
I think we had another question in the back.
Yeah, sorry. Looking back at your experience, would you change anything, or what would you tell your younger self, sort of next step?
To change in my personal experience, you mean, or
In your experience, looking back, would you gone somewhere else, change your?
It's a very personal question. You could always observe. I would say something. It's more because you are a woman as well, asking the question. I would say that there are barriers for women who I have ignored too much, and I lost time because of that. So what I'm trying to do also with always just younger women is, just keep going. It's not to complain at all. You have to keep going, but don't ignore. Don't ignore it, because they are barriers. They are there. Just don't ignore it. You could save time. But otherwise, always optimization. Probably I should have left Sofinnova earlier to do JATO, but I learned a lot of things at Sofinnova. Great firm. I regret a little bit the patients, but yeah, that's it.
But you have an impact on the patient, so that's
hopefully.
Another question?
Yeah, thanks for the talk. I feel like my career is starting. I've been a clinician for 5 years, and then I'm currently a master's student working in the field of cell and gene therapy. So right now I'm at an intersection. I would like to continue a PhD and do science, but at the same time there's something in me that tells that I should go back to medicine. And I'm thinking, is it worth the time? And of course, academia and industry, both opportunities are presented in front of me. I'm right at the intersection right now. So, what can you give me some insights? Like, should I just continue doing science, whether in academia or industry, or what's the?
I'm honored you asked the question, but I think if you are attracted by medicine back, it means you like very much the patient. So you have to find a way how you feel very happy to bring to the patient. I found my way with investing. Is it your way? Is it still with the patient? Is it in innovation? So it's why you are here today then, if I may ask.
Okay, when I'm with my patient, I really find a lot of things which can be improved in medicine. I feel medicine should be done in a different way, and that's one reason I'm doing cell and gene therapy. And I like it, doing science, and what gives me fulfillment is making a breakthrough and giving back something to a patient, using science to give back something to a patient. So it's like a back to bench side approach and back again. Yeah.
So.
We had another question in the back. Yeah.
Hi, I was wondering how big is your fund?
We'll see.
So you are building it?
Yes. I'm not supposed even to say a fund, but
It's a company.
It's a
Another question?
Just one thought was that I probably spend half of my time sort of networking and trying to bring VCs in together to fill rounds. I can only think of one VC that I work with, which is a German VC, Ananda. The rest are from the UK or the US. And I'm wondering, how to build that sort of network, across from Cambridge, London, Paris, where you can sort of say, okay, we've got a deal here, bring in investors from Paris, London, Cambridge, UK, US.
It will be great. I'm happy to contribute if I could with you, because this is something really to do. It's a pity because we are so few VCs in Europe compared with the US. So we are not in competition actually, because there are so many companies and the need. And I don't know why. It's back to the point of what is missing here, but probably in Europe, is to share more between experience and deals and I think with more women on board, it will help.
More diplomacy.
No, I agree.
But it's not so. I think the VCs now in Europe kind of know each other very well anyway.
Yeah.
But maybe it's more the early stage also that could interact more. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think yourselves, you're doing a lot to bring the fact that we're sitting here now. I think it's a good thing. So it's a start, isn't it? But yeah, I'm wondering if we can do more somehow.
Maybe I can complete. There are some platforms helping business angels to connect each other. I have in mind one called SQVest, who just launched 1 month ago, and they are trying to do exactly this kind of crowdfunding on the topic of biotech and bringing people from everywhere in Europe. And also, I think one aspect is to simplify the administration, because when you invest abroad, it's also more difficult usually. That's why some business angels I've met, they don't necessarily want to invest abroad because there are different fiscalities and some stuff like this. So some platforms I think are trying to change it, so it can change in the close future. One more question? Yeah.
Yes, I would like to know, despite
despite your track record is well known, is it still difficult to build your company as a woman more than as a man? Or how do you experience that in the everyday work?
So I think raising money anyway is difficult. An entrepreneur is difficult as there is an entrepreneur who is in the room said to me recently, it's passionating and depressing at the same time. So I think it's exactly that. So it's difficult anyway. Nevertheless, I mean, the numbers are telling the truth. It is more difficult, but it is you know, we have to break this circle, and I say it is changing. It is changing, but I think it's also a question of homophily. It's not that the men are hard and they don't want to work with women. It's just, you know, even sometimes not conscious. And there is even one investor in funds, so limited partners LP, who said, "Oh, you should," because in the team of JATO, actually we are 7. I mean, still with some job for some of them, but 5 women out of 7. And when we pitch, it's mostly 2 women and not quiet women. And one of them said, we were talking about that, and he said, "Oh, you should take a man alibi, you know, comment dire, you know, a man just to help." Okay, they feel, and there are studies about that. They feel they feel less secure. I mean, they are big insurance CEO of big insurance company here in France said to me, you know, but we were in a very, very homogeneous world where it was only white men doing the same school here in France. So now it's starting to change. So, but very slow. And not only women diversity, but also you know, black, white people. That's also an issue.
So you will have an impact on this and the patients. So
hopefully.
It was very good missions together.
Thank you, Joachim.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.